Hello and welcome to Cecil.tv. This is Cecil Weekly and I'm your host, Rob Churnside. Our first guests tonight are from the Archeological Society of the Northern Chesapeake, Dan Coates and Dave Peters. Gentlemen, welcome to Cecil.tv and Cecil Weekly. So Dan, tell us about the Archeological Society.
Well, the Archeological Society of the Northern Chesapeake is one of the chapters of the state society, and that generally works under the broad supervision of the Maryland Historic Trust. But this local chapter was founded in 1957, and it's become just about the largest chapter in the state. Got a lot of history. We helped establish a state office of archaeology, and we've been to an awful lot of sites in the area.
Well, you've been to Rogers Tavern, correct?
That's correct. Anytime that archaeology is required at Rogers Tavern, since it is a historic site that's under state control, we do volunteer work with the principal investigator or the archaeologist that they select to do the field investigation.
Oh, I see. So if it's mandated that some sort of archaeological digging and checking things out has to occur, then these people are hired maybe from outside and they come in, they're experts, and they lean right on you to help them out.
That's right. They want that cheap labor. And a lot of times they're nonprofit organizations. They can't afford to pay an archaeologist a lot of money, so they appreciate the volunteer effort.
These nails here, are they from Rogers Tavern?
No, they're not from Rogers Tavern. They're from a burned house, a historic house in Baltimore County, and that's why they've survived so well. Because any time when you burn metal, it doesn't have a tendency to rust so badly.
Oh, how about that? Did not know that. Well, it's not cheap labor, but it's a labor of love, right?
Correct.
How about you, Dave? Have you been on digs? Is there a favorite that comes to mind, or?
I have been on digs. I'm currently in a program, Certified Archaeological Technician program. I'm a member of ASNC, Archaeological Society of Northern Chesapeake, also Archaeological Society of Maryland. And with the program that I'm in, it's a training program. I go out and work hand in hand with archaeologists, do excavations, record. And one excavation I did that Dan actually let me be the prime investigator, that's the person leading the investigation, was down in Havre de Grace, a historic house, where we had this property that we had to lay out, and we actually did metal detecting. We wanted to see if there was any metal buried under the ground before we went in and dug. And we had 3 metal detectors help us out, volunteers, and we figured there'd be a few pieces of metal in the property. They ended up to be a few thousand.
Wow.
A lot of metal, and we're thinking about going back there and seeing exactly what is buried under there.
Wow. So if someone wanted to volunteer, say they read in the paper or see on Cecil.tv that something is happening and there's a call for volunteers, do they call you, or?
Well, we are open to membership. Virtually anybody that's interested can be a member. And even if a walk-on occurs at an archaeological dig, the principal investigator will usually give a visitor a tour, and if they want to stick around and help out, they're certainly welcome to do that. So we very often attract people simply because if you're digging systematically and scientifically in the ground, it attracts attention.
Ah. So you have a collection of artifacts that you found.
Well, I brought these along just to show examples of some prehistoric tools. The top row here is a series of what we now call axes, but were probably wood splitting tools as much as anything else. And that particular one that you're holding there is called a 3/4 groove axe. The oldest are actually full groove, and the groove at the back of the axe blade was used to haft it onto a wooden handle. Then it eventually went to a 3/4 groove, and finally in the woodland period ended up as what we call a celt, which is a stone blade that's actually jammed into a handle as Dave is holding it there. And that made a little bit more of a functional tool, very easy to remove from the handle, because you don't want to be carrying a big handle around with you. You just want to carry the working tool, make yourself a new handle the next time you camp out.
That makes sense, and then you can just travel light, as light as these.
Then, of course, you have blades like this that were used for knives or quarried picks or virtually any tool where you need a straight edge.
You can tell that's man-made. It's quartz, right?
Yes, that's quartz. Very hard stone, very common to this area. The vast majority of the tools we find are quartz, and you can always tell the cultural working on it by this varied blade, you know, flaked off opposing sides to get a sharp edge.
You brought some arrowheads, I see.
This represents the Maryland typology. Over time, this being the oldest period, the Paleo period, the different forms change. But it takes a considerable amount of time for that change to happen. And most anthropologists now consider that easily hundreds of years before things are normally changed just by word of mouth carrying on skills. And we do it a lot quicker today because we've got communication skills.
Now, you've told us, we talked earlier, gentlemen, the worked at Rogers Tavern, Elk Landing, digs focus on the War of 1812, the Susquehanna Canal up there by Conowingo. You haven't mentioned Principio Ironworks.
Well, we haven't been to Principio yet. We met there one time, had a very nice tour of the place. Sarah Kalinda is the person in charge there. And it's quite an interesting place, but haven't been back yet. Don't know why.
Well, what's on the radar screen for you gentlemen? What's coming up next?
Well, we've got a quarry site that we're investigating in Harford County. It's a jasper quarry. It's a very highly sought after type of stone to use for stone tools. And the sister site to that is at Iron Hill and has already been investigated. And we're just re-investigating this one in Harford County.
Well,
And for me, I'm going to be going over Memorial Day weekend down southern Maryland to do excavation work on a prehistoric site down there.
nice, nice. Keep busy with it.
Yes,
One quick
lot
question.
to do.
If someone were to find an arrowhead, which I've wanted to do in my entire life, in this area in Cecil County, most likely, who would have made that? Do you think?
Well, we've got about 12,000 years
Yeah.
of
So pick
prehistory
somebody
here.
from 12,000 years.
So it depends on the shape, the stone, the type of stone. Some of these shapes are very significantly different. You see a line of triangles there at the top. Those are true arrowheads. Arrows weren't used in this area before about 1000 AD. Very modern tool. So before that, there were spear points of some kind, probably fishing spears.
Well,
And any number of people came to this area to fish.
if I ever find one, I'm going to contact you at the Archeological Society of the Northern Chesapeake, correct? One question. This rock here, do you think it's man-made? Thank you both for
All
being
right.
on Cecil.tv. Cecil Weekly.
Thank you.